Okay, we're on a 1999 GMC Suburban here. We're going to do an oil change. Pretty much all these oil changes are the same for just about any make and model of a GMC or a Chevy, even the older ones to the newer ones. Pretty much all you're going to use is a 15mm wrench and the oil wrench. And check the top of your valve cover here for what kind of oil you have. This one here actually uses a 5W30. A lot of them are different, but 520 is pretty common. Same with your oil filter. A lot of them are different. pH8s, pH5s if you're using Fram, 5803s. Your oil filter is going to be on the right hand side directly underneath. So first thing you want to do is turn your tires to the right. The reason that I turn the tires to the right, there's actually two reasons. One is because it's easier to get to that oil filter. You just crawl right up underneath right here, not to mention your drain plug. Your drain plug is on the same size as the oil filter, and that drain plug, if you look at the vehicle, you can see the right hand side is up just a little bit higher. It tweaks when I turn my tires to the hard right, and the drain plug's on that side, so this way you're sure to get every drop out. So I'm going to crawl underneath now. I'm going to use my 15mm. A lot of these are 5/8, 9/16, 11/16, depending on your vehicle. But I think 95 to, 2002 are all 15mm. So crawl underneath there. We're going to break that loose and drain the oil. That's how we'll get started. Okay, so here we got the 15mm on the nut. And I wanted to show you guys, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know this little trick. Well, I don't know if I can do it with one hand. But locking two wrenches together so that you can get the extra leverage that you need. You're simply going to use the opened end there and lock them together like that so you have more leverage to break that loose. And also I wanted to tell you, this is a 5.7 liter, and a lot of questions are, how much oil do I use? In this particular case, keep in mind there's always about a quart of oil that you'll never get out unless you flush the system, and that's not bad. There's nothing wrong with that. So how many quarts do you use? This one here is going to use 5 quarts, almost 5 quarts. If you do the math, 5.7 liters is 6 quarts, right at like 0.05 or whatever off. But and then you have that quart variance that's going to be around the valves, sitting in the head, etc., in the fuel pump, in the line. So that's roughly 5 quarts, and that determines too on the size of the filter that you choose. Some oil filters use 3/4 of a quart, some use a quart, some use a half a quart. So sometimes the smaller filters are the better ones because they flush quicker. But then again, the larger ones will have more area to filter. So whatever your preference is. But so if you have a 4.3 liter, just keep in mind you're only going to use about 3 quarts, maybe 3.5, depending on your filter. So that's something to think about. So we'll go ahead and break this loose now. I'm going to drain it inside of our jug here, and then we'll pull that filter off. Okay, so I pulled that bolt out of there. You can look at the tip of that bolt right there. There's a bunch of junk on it. That's actually a magnet right on the tip, so just clean that off real good before you put it back. Alright, I want to show you a couple different oil filter wrenches too. And they have the bigger ones too for the pH5s. These things just pretty much lock as you twist them. Let me put it under my boot here so you can see. See how it locks and it twists that way? So to loosen it, to take it off, I mean, you're going to pull it this way if the filter's going in this direction, and it'll lock, and to put it back on, vice versa. I don't like to use any type of wrench to put them back on. I just do it hand tight. I always put a little bit of oil around the seal, just the old oil's fine, and just put them back on hand tight as I can with my hands, and that's good enough, because when they vibrate tight. They don't vibrate loosen. So, and these ones here are universal ones. These will work for the large ones or the small ones. I really like these. They came out with them, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. And years ago we used to use our belt, a fan belt or a belt on our pants, and just wrap it around it, lock it, and twist it. If you have one that's stuck really bad, you can drive a screwdriver through it and twist it like that. I've done that to get them off before. You're taking it off anyway and replacing it. Just make sure you do have the right one to put it back on if you choose to do that. And then this particular one will allow you to get around exhaust pipes and things like that. It will lock that direction, but the handle also moves back and forth, as you can see. So those kind of help too. But again, don't use these to put them on. Just put them on as tight as you can with your hands. If you're not a very strong person, then go ahead and give it like an eighth of a turn. but most of the time your hand tight is tight enough. I think they suggest about 10 pounds. So, alrighty, let's go ahead and pull that filter. Okay, so here's our oil filter. Now, I've already put the plug back in since I'm down here. That's done. The oil's drained. There's also another type of wrench that I remember. It looks like just a plate that goes around the back here and grabs that, and you put a 3/8 ratchet on the end. Those work pretty good too, as long as you have room. So all we're going to do is we're going to grab our wrench in here the best that we can, grab it, and just twist it, and twist it, and twist it, till it gets loose enough that we can pull it out by hand. There might be a little bit of oil that comes out here, so go ahead and slide your pan back over, so you don't make too much of a mess. Unless you're like me and you have a dusty yard, then let it drip. Keep the dust down. Then I point it down, and that's it. Pull her out just like that. Slide the other one back on the same way. Again, just hand tight. As tight as you can get it with your hand is good. And that's it. So then we'll go up top and we'll put the oil in. Okay, so I'm using a little bit larger of an oil filter because it's the one I have. It's a PH 8A. And it's not the same one that's coming off of this, but it's one that I have here. You can match up just about any of them. All the GM threads are the same in the center. The main thing is the filter, the seal around the outside is the same size. And you can see some of these are larger. See, the seal is much larger. But some where they connect, whether it's an external filter, not an external filter, whether it has an extension on it or not, which this truck does. Without the extension, it would take this older one, a PH5 or a 4. I'm not sure which one that one is. PH5. So, but some of the extensions also will allow that seal to work too, so you'll just have to pay attention to that, or just get the one that the manufacturer tells you to use. This step here, I am simply just going to lube up some of this, take up some of this old oil, and I'm going to wipe it on the seal here. Make sure that you do this. This will keep it nice and snug and keep it from leaking. So just wipe it all around that, and this old oil don't matter because it's not going back in the engine. It's simply just there to keep this from drying out. So that's it. Alright, now I'll put this back on as tight as I can with my hands, and then we'll add the oil. So here we go. Okay, so I pulled the lid off there. I'm using what brand of oil what weight of oil it tells me to use. I use 5W30 and just the cheapest oil they have by price, because I change my oil about every 2,500 miles. I do it a lot sooner than most people, but I do a lot with this truck. It's got 300,000 on it just about. It still runs just as good as it has, or did, when it had 80,000. So I'm going to not worry about an oil funnel, because this spout sticks up high enough. I have a steady enough hand, I can pour that in. So I'm going to go ahead and pour that in, and that'll be all she wrote. Okay, we're going to put the lid back on there. We'll go ahead and check the oil here. It'll probably read a little bit overflow, and that's okay. Each one of those dots represent a quarter of a quart, and you can see the last one where the full mark is. I am actually right about to there, about 3/8 of the quart over, and that's okay because we haven't started the vehicle yet. The fuel or the oil pump hasn't filled up that filter, and that filter is going to hold about 3/8 of a quart. So I'm happy with that. I wanted to show you guys real quick. Turn your key to the on position and wait. The reason is because we're going to prime up that fuel filter. Shut it off, wait a second, turn it back on again. Each time counting about 3 seconds. Do this 3 times before you start this vehicle. The reason is, if your vehicle's running good, it'll probably fire right up anyway. But we want to make sure that this vehicle is going to fire up one turn of the key at this point. Why? Because we don't have oil in the engine anywhere yet. And the oil pump hasn't pumped it up. We want to make sure the engine's lubed. If you fire this engine and it's not lubed, you'll actually add about 3,000 miles to your vehicle right off the bat. That's how much wear and tear that you'll put on that engine running it with no oil. Maybe 1,000 to 3,000 miles. So I primed it up 3 times. I know my fuel filter's full. I know my fuel pump's full, so I'll fire it. That's it. Again, the reason that we do that is to make sure that we're not starting this engine dry. All that oil's out of it. Now we've poured it back in, but all those little nooks and crannies are not full of oil. They essentially still have that 1 quart, so you'll probably be okay. but do this just in case. There's no use putting any wear and tear on this vehicle that you don't need to. And again, with almost 300,000 miles on this truck, it's worked for me, and it just runs great. So I hope this helped you out. Enjoy. I hope you attempt to do it on your own. If you're watching the video, you're thinking about it, please do it. Save money. You know that's what I'm all about, saving money. Any comments, please leave them. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks again for watching.